Today on Ark Building Evolved, we finally put some time into the church. We build a cathedral to the god of the wind. May he watch over this harbor and power the sails of our ships. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Ark Building Evolved with me, UTC, back in y'all life. And I have a couple little things to say. One, thank you to you guys for all your creative ideas. A few of you made some really good suggestions on how to do the sort of horizontal bits of this crane. If you look, it used to just have catwalks across the top. Right up here where I now have this modded horizontal rope ladder thing. This is from the Eco Stable mod, I think, something like that, and that ended up working out really well. But your suggestions, for those of you trying to build this with S+ only, were so good. So suggestion number one, make another one of these pillars, make it super thin and run it all the way across. The only problem with that is it needs a mounting point, so you'd have to go put a ceiling, another invisible ceiling right here, and then run that really thin pillar across. And I really don't like the look of the super thin pillars. I mean, you can take them down to this. Nope, that's not right. Don't mess this thing up, UTC. Come on. You can take them down to this, which I guess looks a lot like rope from a distance. So that would totally work. The other suggestion, and this is the one that popped in my head, is electrical cables. And if they're unpowered, they're not yellow, so they would totally work. I think we had this around 179.79 update. Yeah, something like that. And then the last suggestion was a very cool one. The zip lines, where you could mount a zip line from one point to another, and I had never considered that. I don't think I'm going to change it now, because now that I've added these modded railings, it was a lot of work. Basically, there's S+ glass ceilings on top, and I had to do a lot of fiddling to get them off-center so that this would all line up like this. So I think I'm going to leave it like that, but if we do another crane, I will definitely try the zipline technique. That was ingenious. So thank you on that front. And let's talk about this series, guys, and the outpouring of creativity I get. My channel started growing from Ark building tutorials, step by step. Here's exactly how to build for the bakers. And the comments I would always get were like, oh, this doesn't work for me. Oh, help me. Oh, this, whatever. Really not... They weren't the same comments we get in this series. In this series, it's an outpouring of inspiration, creativity, and I could not ask for... That's why I made this switch. That's why Building Evolved became a thing, and tutorials became a much rarer thing. You guys, this is the feedback I want. This is the series I want, and you are the people I want watching. So thank you. If you are among the 1,000 that regularly watch every episode, hopefully we will keep that number growing. And my favorite thing about this new season and playing on this server with the geeks is not just sort of spreading the idea of creative building in Ark being a possibility. This is not a game designed for building, yet look what we have created, right? My favorite thing is not just that, it is the mindset. If you have been watching this series for a long time, you know it started with, okay, let's look at this shoreline. If there were people living here, what kind of people would they be? They'd probably have some docks. This is a nice little harbor. Right? And that started with docks, and we continue and we continue and we continue thinking more and more, learning about the people and using our imaginations to add richness and vitality to our world. So in a city like this, so one of the people that's on here now is Core, and he is probably going to do a little build in town. He's built his own whole city on the other side of the water over there. And thank you, Rain, for piecing right out. So the thing that every time I talk to him, I go like, okay, well, what about, what, you know, now that you've built the city, look around it and go, well, what would these people worship? What would their religion be? What would their major food source be? And then in a city this size, you start to think, what about import export? What about trade? And that's that, you know, the more you do that, the more new ideas you have, the more inspiration pops into your head. And you don't have to do that when you're building a city in creative mode. You can do it building your base in Ark. You want to build a base that suits the biome, that suits the environment, and you want to start envisioning what it would be like if people lived there and going, okay, well, if they lived here, what would this, what would that? And so that's a lot of the ideas I have left for this season, guys. Anyway, all of this, it might be silly to some of you, but for me, it really starts to add inspiration. And today we're going to be talking about that sort of thing. We're going to be talking and thinking more about these people and their religion. So this is the beginning of a church. Now, what happened is, as I was building up the docks and the buildings around it, I kind of formed a couple little staircases and eventually decided there needed to be a big build at the top of this one. And so I put in this individual staircase here with the stone on the sides, the wood stairs, and there's wood ramps underneath there, so you're not looking straight through. And then I built this weird sort of roller coaster ramp where you go from vanilla ramps, which are very steep, to a regular ramp, which is a 45, to flat, and then boom, 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 and it has a very unique feel to it. And this is how I planned this church. And I'm going to be on in a little bit with Gingie, whose specialty is designing circles. And so with that in mind, I had thought about doing two big there. That might be him right there. Yeah, it is. I thought about two big towers at the back of the church, and I think we talked about redesigning the whole thing because there's not a whole lot of room in here. And he thought the best thing might be having the preacher, whatever sort of religious leader there is, with his back to that window, and the congregation sitting here looking out at it. Gingie has a very weird body. That is disturbing. So Gingie and I are going to build, like I did with Dynamic. It'll mostly be off camera, but I'll come back and show you stuff as I can. I might take you an opportunity to show you Gingie's circle techniques. And I want to talk about, before we go, it's super deep in the episode already, the deity. What do they worship? And the last time I came up with something like this, we were doing the Swamp Kingdom in Volume 5 of Building Evolved. And the god I ended up deciding on was a fire god. Because how do you keep the snakes and the gators and the crocs at bay, but with fire? And we built Hollow Fire Temple and filled it with eternal flame in the windows. And that seemed to be a really fun way to go. I know it's a bit predictable, but I think we continue with the thought of the elements. And these people in this harbor town should worship the wind, a god of the wind, right? Now, I know all that's left is earth, water, wind. What is it? Wind, water, earth. That's not the right order at all. But if you look at these ships, if you look at this harbor, I think this needs to be a place where they worship a god of wind. So as I build with Gingie today, I'm going to try and bring that into the inspiration. He has an idea for a church organ, which is, of course, powered by wind. I think that makes a brilliant combo. And I wanted to start today's episode just talking about inspiration, my mindset, and how much I love that it is spreading, not just to the people on the server, but to some of you guys as well, changing the way you think about Ark and your builds. But I'm deep enough into this episode that I need to probably take a break, and when I come back, I'm going to be working with Gingie. We might already have some stuff done. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Click the like button if you do. Hit me up in the comments and tell me what inspires you, and I will be back in your life in a moment. The first thing you did was find out where the center point, because for me, the center point of a circle, like you said, it was going to be 5 by 5. So the way that I laid that out had a ceiling in the middle, basically, right? With 2 coming off on each side in order for me to get a 5 wide diameter. But you need the center point to be the center of 4 foundations, basically, right? To start?
Yeah, I need the center point to be a center point, not
right.
a ceiling.
Not the center of a ceiling, right. And you did this checkerboard because that makes it really easy to ascertain what's what. Whoops,
yeah,
I'll get out your way.
It just makes it easy just to eyeball where the middle is here.
And my favorite thing about this server is that I can see you placing that as you place it. That's the builder companion.
Yeah.
All right, and so what's the second pipe signify? Oh, that's the first of your kind of points around the circle.
Yeah, so this is, I'll remove everything just because with S+ we can have it float in here.
Mm-hmm.
So right here, this is basically having this angle that you have in the octagon.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put the pipe here so that, if you come over here and you back up a bit, when you line up those 2 pipes in front of each other, you actually, are facing the right way.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I gotcha. Oh, that's going to be cool.
There we go. So, like right now, we have all the snap points we need to continue this circle all the way around.
Yep. Yeah, the view from underneath is the place to be right now.
And yeah, once we get this, then, we can place walls down and put ceilings on them. And they should stay because it's S+.
Yes. That's it.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. So that is 16?
Yep.
All coming together in the middle?
Yep.
And check that out. That is super cool. Oh man, I'm so you are so bold for removing all the ceilings. Like I just don't I don't trust that everything's gonna stay there.
If it didn't, we just hit that record button again.
Yep. Yeah. But that is cool in and of itself. Just the shape of that sort of pinwheel.
Sure.
Okay, and then by expanding out of here, you get to a point where the walls that sort of cross over. It's a minimal enough crossover that when you're done, it looks smooth.
So if we want it to be 5 wide, we need to put pillar right here on the edge.
And vanilla pillars, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, you could probably use the S plus small ones, but if you look here at the very end, you have
yes,
they come together pretty much perfectly.
That is sweet. So you do that around enough circles, and you get 0 crossover, and a perfect hexadecagon. Yeah, no, I see exactly how to do it.
Yeah, so just come all the way around, and
I think I could recreate this now. I'm gonna have to do this myself next. But yeah, that is a 16-sided, 5 foundation wide diameter circle, and it is going to be the basis of one of 2 towers. We'll put another one out on this corner, and then that's kind of step 1. The next step is figuring out. I was kind of figuring out if there was going to be, in order to keep sort of the big slopey ramp that I like. The next step was figuring out how to maybe raise things up another couple floors to somewhere right around here and have this is where the window would start and the preacher would sit and look down on a congregation. So can totally figure that out. Actually, as you stand up here, it doesn't seem like it's going to be that hard to figure out. I think that'll work pretty well. How does that church look? What do you think? I'm getting some first impressions of it, too, from this distance, at least. So something happened, guys. Gingie and I were working together on Friday, and in the middle of it, a crazy storm whipped up, and I said to him, oh, crap, my power might go out at any second, and then it did. It stayed offline for almost 2 days, so now it's Sunday afternoon, and I'm finally getting back to the Building Evolved world. I know it's only been a moment for you, but welcome back. It's been a couple days for me. So while I still had some battery on my tablet, I communicated a little bit with Gingie. He sent me some, what do you think of this? What do you think of that type ideas? And I went back and forth as much as I could and said, go work on the church, dude. We talked a lot about it, considered a lot of concepts. I know I'm offline, but if you got ideas, start putting them together. And he had some ideas. Now, since then, I have been on and done some work myself, so let's get up close and take a look at this thing. It's still got a lot of work to go, and Gingie and I will be back together on Tuesday. It's Sunday for me now, and so this will probably be your Thursday video. But I wanted to record a little update. So this view, still great. Now, there's a few work in progress things right there, but one thing that I did, I wanted this church to stand out from all the stone in the city, as if it was built from a different material, slightly different. And you can see it's very subtle. It basically looks like a bluish gray instead of a yellowish gray, and that's sky blue paint. In the right lighting, it's hardly even noticeable that it's been painted, but it has. And then up top is greenhouse glass, and that has been painted in tan, as have the pillars on either side. And we went and added in a couple little modded details, stained glass from the Eco Garden Decor mod. So I've got a door and a window stacked on top of each other in both these spots. And I mentioned there's a couple little work in progress things. So this ramp will get back to its full self. This will end up getting painted. We'll figure out the underside of all this. But we do have quite a bit to do to finish up the inside of this. But that is where we stand. So the towers. This is obviously the thing that made me want to bring Gingie in on the project. He can do circles. And if all goes well, maybe I'll have a tips and tricks video for you guys on things we can do with circles using S+ in addition to his technique. And if all went well, maybe there was a tutorial yesterday on how to flip things upside down. We'll see. And so this tower, unfinished, I think that's probably what we will do when we get back together. And then this one has had a top added to it. And from the bottom, it looks pretty exceptional. That is a very cool looking roof. And what we're going to do now is get ourselves up to this upper tier. The sort of way up hasn't been figured out, but I think we will end up ramping around the outside of this to get up to this height, but we'll just use creative mode fly. And Gingie, very vanilla guy, not personality-wise, but building style-wise, I clearly have taught him a few tricks. This is an upside-down wooden ceiling, and it makes a great runner for the church. All the way up to the altar, you can picture pews on either side. This is more of that greenhouse glass, and it looks really good. I meant to show it off. As you look through this glass window, you can see light coming through the sides. And he actually did ceiling work, which is something that is highly sort of underestimated the potential of, is that having that lofty ceiling not just be blah ceiling above you, but to add detail into that. And clearly he's attempting to do that with these big cross beams. I like the feel. And then let's take a look from up here. Yeah. All right. We want to get ourselves up and take a look at the tower toppers he's done for us. And there you go, guys. I added in some tan paint to match the pillars on the front, and very unique design. This would work for a lighthouse or something like that. Oop, double jump. Perfect. And check out the topper. Oh, not quite a steeple, but sort of like a turret top. And that is all done with vanilla. These are not S+ pieces at all. Of course, we have the no clip method on the server. So that makes a really interesting tower topper, don't you think? Some of the details I've added, guys, if you look at the tower on the right, to the tower on the left, I added a band of inside-out vanilla stone walls, and I painted the backing in brown, exactly the same way we did on the wizard tower. And then right here, because we have the no-clip method, I was able to double layer a stone wall with a stone railing, and I painted the railing completely in tan, all three regions, and I think that's enough to add a little bit of detail. You wouldn't have to go a heck of a lot more detailed than that, if you ask me. A couple of the other things I added are these bits of stone railing up at the top. There needed some detail up top here, so that's all painted in brown, and actually the base, region 3, I think it is painted in mud. I didn't go to the same trouble here. Those are all brown, but on the front, that color was just a little bit too light. And then he built up this glass front in kind of the way that I had in mind. We'd talked about it before I got disconnected. Added the topper on it. He had a flat bottom, so I went and did the same technique we did on that tower. Flipping things upside down so that instead of, is it this one? Turn the HUD on. Instead of this, this texture on the bottom, you have the top texture on the bottom, and it matches what you have on the top. I like that a lot, and I think that was needed to add some depth, and then I went and added in the stained glass stuff that we talked about. But I wanted to just give you a little update, and then Gingie and I are back together in a couple of days. Hopefully, we will finish this church together and maybe work out the second tower topper and a bit more details. I might work out some of the inside off camera, but I just want to record, like I said, a little update, show you the progress thus far. The ships, by the way, are fantastic. That they actually have like spots to stand on up at the top of all these. Like I really feel like I'm in the harbor, looking down on the harbor when I'm doing it from on top of a ship instead of just floating in the air. Mm-hmm. So two tower options. This one I did, which it goes from the hexadecagon to a 3x3 square to a 2x2 square to a 1 wide square, all tiered up. And I think I think we both kind of like the tall tapering tower better than the sort of the lighthouse top version with the pillars and the rounded turret roof. And then this is ever narrowing circles. So are they all? They're all still hexadecagons, just
just until with lower radii,
and then until the top where it's just pillars, so close that they all touch together. So those are the two options. From a distance, they both look pretty good. I think the 3 stacks looks good. The three additions on top of the main tower, as opposed to the 4. So maybe we make a couple adjustments to the rounded design. I do think the rounded design is better. yeah, it's really hard to say. For the very first time, we ran into the 10,500 structure limit. And so I've upped that a few thousand. And so hopefully that won't be an issue. Obviously, we use a lot more walls and building pieces on the left side, but we could definitely save a bunch if we design those to either be 4 or 12 high. Those sections, we can use S plus and replace 4 walls with 1 wall.
Those are actually 4 high already, so we'd have to make them 5 or 6.
And then other little bit of detail we did was inside out stone walls with upside down, inside out stone walls all around. Same concept. I can't see it from here, but same concept as the Mage Tower. And then painted that all brown. So you've got this sort of band of delineation in between the two things of stained glass. And then we really still have to work out the interior. But I don't know. I say we take the rough shape visually of the tower on the right, and we do the rounded style of the tower on the left to match it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's probably it. And then if we do that, then the interior we can slam together pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah. There's
not that much left to it. But yeah, I don't know, man. Lots of progress and lots of building pieces in place. And I think the church being painted in that second color makes it definitely stand out from the surroundings. It's definitely not the same as this stone, which is perfect, even in this lighting.
Yeah, it makes it stand out like just enough to be noticeable, but not enough to be out of place.
Yeah. And at first I thought those towers were going to look just ridiculously tall. I think that's about right, though.
From down here at this perspective, the tops of the towers looked the same height as the front of the church.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, they look really good from down here, that height. And I think from this angle it's more obvious. The roundedness will be more obvious. So I say we do 3 kind of 5 or 6 tall sections of roundedness on the right tower, and make a couple adjustments to the left tower, and then all that will be left is a few tweaks to the inside. But yeah, it looks good, man. The whole thing looks very imposing. I think you were right that we probably built too big of towers for a church this size, but we'll make it work.
Yeah, I think if we bring down the skinnier part
as far
further as we can,
okay,
it'll work.
Cool. Well, let's go put some work in. Let's see if we can save on a few structures and hopefully save on frame rate at the same time, and bring the church to life. I'm gonna have one last look at it from the original point of view. Yeah, no, it's gonna look good. How does that look? This church has gone through a lot of variations and a lot of iterations since starting. You may ask why this wall is here. Well, that's just so you don't notice the lack of symmetry in the current design. But the church is not done, but today's episode is done, guys. I got to get this thing packed and shipped out to you. So we're gonna stop the recording here, and we will continue the building off camera. This is one of the centerpiece builds. The castle took multiple days of building. The church will as well. It already has, and I think it's time I pack this into an episode. The reason I have this stone wall here is because the towers are not symmetrical, and I didn't want that to ruin your view. This is the equivalent of a hand in front of one of your eyes or something like that. Wait, that doesn't make sense. Anyway, so we have added in 2 things on the exterior to bring in a god of wind. First is a spinning windmill up top. Second are those triangular sails. The windmill is from the Castles and Keeps mod, and the sails are from the Advanced Rafts mod, and they're the extra large triangular sail. And I am pretty happy with how those have turned out. I think they look pretty darn good. And I went and incorporated a little bit more on the inside, but the inside is really lacking. It needs details, and obviously the tower on the left needs to be made to match the tower on the right, and we just ran out of time. And I wanted to get this episode done and moved along to you guys. So let's take a look at this from a couple of angles. You've seen it from the crane. This is it from below, and I think you see why we're going with the taller of the 2 towers. And we're going to go look at it before we walk up from this end of the city out here, where I am currently working on a project for next episode, a little fishing hut. We won't go that far. Let's stop right about here, and boom. So originally, when I introduced the idea of bringing back work on this church, I talked about King's Landing and needing centerpiece builds, and this now feels like a centerpiece build. It was always just a facade and never quite big enough to dominate the small buildings that lie underneath it. Now it is. It feels grand and cathedral-like. I don't know what you think of the sails and the windmill. Without those, it's just a regular church. So I'm trying to bring in elements of a wind god that we can use in our imagination, in our role play of the people that live here. But let's go ahead and take a look at the city. I mentioned the inside is a little barren, but there are some cool details. We've now fully painted up all the bits that count as church, and you notice we still have these areas here, but then you come up here and we've got the sky blue, which is a little bit more obvious on the inside. We've got those doors fully built in. Oh, a little bit of lag, pardon me. Those doors fully built in, and a little bit of the window poking through there. And then this area definitely needs some detailing. I just haven't figured out what yet. If you come over to this tower, this is the one that is done. You can actually get a peek at the method Gingie is using to add in a staircase. And he is going all out. I will link you guys at the end of this either to his channel or to his tutorial on a 32-sided circle, but this is his technique for a 16-sided one that creates this rounded tower, and I'm pretty happy with it. And then he's adding in a rounded step spiral staircase. And let's go take a look at a finished version of that is spectacular. Lag. So many pillars jammed together that they become a pillar in and of themselves, and then stepping up inch by inch by inch by inch. And as we build here, guys, there are over 10,000 structures in this range. The lag is starting to become real, and we knew that. We knew we would build until we broke things. But this staircase is pretty darn epic, and then you come into a main hall. It is not done, but what you get in this main hall are a couple of additional windmills. Those are from the Eco Stables mod, and if you look out there, you get the spinning blades of the big windmill visible through the glass in front of which a preacher would stand and talk about the Lord of Wind and the God of Gusts, and I don't know what else would be part of it. And you've got this epic view out the city. Lag. Oh, city building will wreak havoc on your servers, I guess. That is the bottom line. I've never built anything this big before. I've never hit a structure limit. And then if you look up there, we've added a little paint to the bottom of those cross beams, and there is a balcony, a mezzanine up there, upon which the organ, the church organ, will be built. And that, of course, also powered by wind. But guys, I think that's going to do it for today's episode. Let's get ourselves on the outside, and let's back up and take a last look at this thing. All right, well, there you go, guys. That is it. I backed right up, and the lag is somewhat real at the moment, so I'm just going to try and stand still. But that does it for today's episode. Big shout out to Gingie for all his help. Link to either one of his videos or his channel popping up on your screen right now, as well as a link to one of the playlists. And thank you so much for hanging out throughout this one. I promise we will get this church done and bring it to its full glory before the server truly grinds to a halt. Geeks, thank you so much for watching. I'm UTC. This is Ark Building Evolved, and I will see you in the next episode.